Bob Taylor spent his career as a hospital administrator and international consultant, helping to bring healthcare solutions to the Middle East. He has the kind of broad perspective and insight into human nature that come from working and living in a very different culture. He has also been a Unitarian for more than 60 years. In his new book, The Laws of Small Projects, Bob offers a delightful collection of stories and cartoons that lay out a number of important life lessons with imagination and humor. Like reminding us that even now, in the midst of political polarization, even if we have nothing else in common, everybody has a junk drawer in their kitchen.
Herb suggested that we talk about this book I've just recently had published, The Laws of Small Projects, and the creative process that goes into such a thing, because it's got not only prose but also cartoons, and he was particularly curious about how does one compose cartoons. And I will tell you right now, I have not a clue, but I'll show you what I did or talk about what I did. The first question that really comes to mind is, what promoted the idea of writing a book about the laws of small projects? And let me just tell you, I had no intention of writing a book about the laws of small projects. But I've had this thing running around in my head for years that the first principle of small projects is there are no small projects. And everybody I've ever told that to says, oh yeah, that's exactly right. There are no small projects. No matter what it is you set out to do, it always takes more effort than you had ever intended. And so I wrote a little essay on that subject. And then I said, well, what are the consequences of that? And I said that maybe the second law of small projects is whatever you do requires at least one trip to the hardware store. You can spend time at home looking for the parts you want and you won't have it. You can look in your junk drawer in the kitchen. That's something everybody has, but whatever it is, it's not in there. But then, going to Herb's question, what about the cartoons? Whatever possessed you to put in cartoons? And I had no intention of doing that. But then the prose that I was writing suggested certain ideas, certain themes that might be represented by some kind of illustration. One of the things I wanted to illustrate was the concept, the very concept of the laws of small projects, and that there aren't any small projects. A friend of mine suggested, well, take a task that is really obviously too difficult, but is being underestimated by the perpetrator. This is the illustration I came up with. If you can see that more clearly. Now, there's no caption to this, as you can see, but there is a little baby dragon down in the left-hand corner, and then in the darkness of the tunnel or the cave are the eyes of impending doom, if you will, to the naive knight in shining armor. And I labeled that with a caption that says, "Hold on," he says to the damsel in the tower, "this will only take a minute." Well, I was so enamored with it that I put it on the cover of the book. One of the things about cartooning in this context is that I had themes within the book that I wanted to illustrate. It's not that I started with just a blank slate altogether. I think some of the people that do it for New Yorker, they really are commenting on the social milieu and the stuff that's happening politically. For me, I had the themes that emerged from the book. The danger of crawling up on tall ladders, the need for reading the instructions and how complicated knowing where you're going. This is the one I did for, it's called Easy Instructions. But in each case I had a theme, so I'd start with the idea, well, how do I illustrate that idea that I've written out in prose in a visual way? And I would sketch an idea, sketch another idea, and throw out half a dozen ideas, then eventually do a mock-up in one size. And then if that worked out, I'd go to a larger size, and eventually I'd come up with sizes like this one I showed you earlier. But then the problem is, how do you make that into a piece that can be inserted in a book? Well, then you have to learn that you have to go to, I can't do it on my home computer, so I have to take it to local print shop, and they duplicate it and they convert it into a certain kind of image, JPEG if you want to know. And then I can manipulate that and crop it, etc., and insert it into the text in a way that works for the book. All of that was stuff I didn't know anything about, and I have to say I struggled with it. And the struggle is in its own right very rewarding, frustrating, but rewarding, especially when you get to the end of it and say, oh, I made that happen.
Doug Simons has been making music all his life, both playing the piano and singing with a number of different musical groups. In his early 20s, Doug played harpsichord in a music group and once had a paying gig playing piano at a ballet school. Doug and his wife Ellen have been married for 36 years, and he has been a member of Foothills for more than 40 years. Here's Doug Simons playing Rhapsody in Blue by George Gershwin.